The clinic smelled like antiseptic and nervous sweat. Dr. Karen Moffat had worked there for 15 years, and she could spot unease from a mile away. But the girl sitting in her waiting room wasn't just nervous. She was off, fidgety fingers. Eyes darting to her father, then away. A strange stiffness in her shoulders, like she was trying to be invisible, even though he sat right next to her. The father, maybe in his late 40s, wore a calm smile. Too calm. His hand rested gently on the girl's shoulder, but it lingered in a way that made Karen's stomach twist. They were called in. "Emily, right?" Karen asked, eyes scanning the chart. 16. Healthy, no major history. Emily nodded, her voice almost a whisper. Yes. The father, whose name was Harold, answered more than she did. "She's been feeling sick lately, nausea, tired all the time. She's losing weight. We thought it could be the flu or something worse. You know how these teenage years are. It's emotional stuff, school stress." Karen gave a nod. She'd heard 100 versions of that story, but something felt different. Emily sat on the exam table, legs swinging slightly, her gaze locked on the floor. Karen asked her to describe her symptoms again. The girl hesitated, looked at her father, then backed down. I feel sick, sometimes, especially in the mornings. And I get dizzy, my stomach hurts too." Karen raised an eyebrow slightly. "Morning sickness?" She turned to Harold. "Do you mind waiting outside while I do a quick physical check?" His smile flickered. "Oh, it's fine, I'm her father. She doesn't mind me being here." Karen didn't flinch. "I understand, but for her comfort and standard procedure, I'd like some privacy." A long pause stretched out. His jaw clenched almost imperceptibly before he nodded and stepped out. The second the door shut, Emily's shoulders dropped, her eyes filled with silent panic. "Emily," Karen said gently, "I need you to be honest with me. You don't have to be scared." Emily nodded slowly, but her lips trembled. "Do you think you might be pregnant?" Emily stared at her like a deer in headlights. Her face flushed with color and then went ghostly pale. She didn't answer, but that reaction was enough. Karen's chest tightened. "I'd like to do an ultrasound just to check. Is that okay?" Tears welled in the girl's eyes, but she nodded. 10 minutes later, Emily lay on the table, shirt lifted, cold gel smeared across her abdomen. The room was silent, except for the hum of the machine. Karen moved the transducer carefully. Her eyes trained on the monitor, and then, there it was. A tiny heartbeat. And something else. Something strange. Karen blinked, leaned closer. The fetus wasn't in the right position. The shape wasn't normal. And there was something about the way the uterine wall looked. A slight shadow where there shouldn't be. Her heart started pounding. "Emily, how far along did you say your symptoms started?" Emily whispered. "Maybe 2 months?" Karen kept her voice steady. "Have you told anyone? Friends? Teachers? No, just him, your father?" Emily turned her face away and started to cry. Outside the room, Harold knocked softly. "Everything all right in there?" Karen's jaw clenched. "Yes, we're almost done." She looked at the monitor one last time, eyes narrowing. That shadow didn't make sense. Something wasn't adding up, not just medically, but emotionally, psychologically. She gently wiped the gel from Emily's stomach. "You're safe here, okay? No matter what. If there's something you need to tell me, I'll believe you." Emily nodded again, but said nothing. Her silence spoke volumes. Karen opened the door. Harold looked at her, smiling still, like a man who thought he had everything under control. But inside her, alarm bells were screaming. Karen didn't let her face show what she was feeling. Years of dealing with all kinds of patients had taught her how to keep it neutral, even when her instincts were screaming. But as Harold stepped back into the room, her stomach knotted tighter. He moved beside Emily and placed his hand on her back, too familiar, too firm. Karen kept her voice level. "The ultrasound confirms a pregnancy, early stages, roughly 8 to 9 weeks." Harold's eyes widened slightly, just for a second, before he masked it with a calm nod. "Oh, wow, that's surprising." Emily sat frozen, her hands clenched tight in her lap, nails digging into her skin. Karen turned to her gently. "Emily, I need to ask you a few questions, legally and medically. Is that okay?" Emily nodded barely. "I'm required to report any pregnancy under the age of 16. You're 16, but we still ask standard questions for safety. Can you tell me who the father is?" Harold cut in too quickly. "She's had a boyfriend, a little older than her. I don't like the kid, but you know how teenagers are." Karen kept her eyes on Emily. "Emily, I need to hear it from you. You can be honest with me. No one's going to punish you." Emily's lips trembled. Her eyes darted to her father, then away again. She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. Karen stood slowly. "Mr. Jensen, I'm going to ask you to step out again. I'd like to speak to Emily alone, this time without question." His smile flickered. This time, he didn't hide it. "I'm her legal guardian." Karen's expression didn't budge. "And I'm her doctor. Please step outside." They locked eyes for a moment. Harold's jaw clenched, but then he nodded slowly and stepped out without another word. As soon as the door clicked shut, Karen turned back to Emily, more serious now. "Emily, look at me. No one is going to hurt you here. Whatever is happening, you can tell me. I promise, this is a safe space." Emily's voice cracked. "I can't." "You can." Tears poured down Emily's face. "He said no one would believe me, that I'd be taken away, that he'd go to jail and I'd end up in some dirty foster home." Karen crouched beside the table. "Emily, is your father the one who—" The girl broke. Her whole body trembled as she sobbed. She couldn't even say it, but she didn't need to. The truth hung heavy in the room, thick and undeniable. Karen stood slowly, walked to her desk and pressed a silent button beneath the counter. It connected her to the head nurse, discreetly signaling an alert. "Emily," she said softly, "I want you to stay here, okay? I'm going to take care of everything." The door opened behind her a moment later, but it wasn't the nurse. It was Harold. "I forgot her purse," he said, eyes scanning the room like a hawk. Karen moved to block his path. "You'll need to wait in the lobby, Mr. Jensen. We're not finished." He stepped closer. "Is there a problem?" Karen's heart beat faster, but she stood firm. "Yes, there is, and it's not going away." Right then, the nurse appeared behind him, followed by a quiet, firm security guard. Harold turned, and his face changed. Calm turned to suspicion, then to quiet anger. "What is this?" he snapped. "Are you calling me a threat?" Karen didn't blink. "Emily has made a disclosure. You are not to leave the building. Authorities are on their way." He tried to speak, but the guard was already stepping in, placing a hand on his arm. "Sir, I need you to come with me." Emily stared in wide-eyed horror as Harold was escorted out, but Karen walked to her and gently placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did the right thing." Emily cried harder, but this time it sounded like relief, like the weight she'd been carrying for months had finally begun to lift. But inside Karen's mind, the image of that ultrasound still haunted her, because something wasn't right with that fetus, not just the circumstances around it. The thing growing inside Emily didn't look entirely human, and that was a whole other problem. The police came within 20 minutes. Harold didn't struggle much, at least not physically, but the way he stared at Karen as they cuffed him, cold, calculated, left a chill in her spine, like he knew something she didn't, like he thought this wasn't over. Emily was placed in a private recovery room while social services were contacted. Karen stayed nearby. The girl was too shaken to eat, too quiet to speak unless directly asked. She'd shut down completely, folded into herself like a crumpled piece of paper. Karen didn't push. She'd seen trauma like this before, though not often this severe, but her mind kept circling back to the ultrasound, the twisted shadow, the irregular motion in the womb, the shape of the head that hadn't matched anything she'd seen in a first trimester scan. She made sure no one touched the machine. Then, as soon as the room cleared for a moment, she pulled the stored file back up. The scan blinked onto the screen. Karen sat down, her eyes fixed on the monitor. The fetus was twitching, but not in the normal fetal way. This was jerky, unnatural, almost aware. Its limbs moved like they were reacting to something, almost like it sensed it was being watched. And then the head turned. Too much for a fetus that early in development. It twisted just enough for the vague outline of two deep, dark indentations to appear where eyes would form. Karen leaned back, breathing shallow. What the hell is this? She hit print. The image that came out didn't make her feel any better. The fetus's skull seemed too long. Not deformed exactly, just wrong. Like it didn't belong in a human body. Like it wasn't even trying to hide that fact. She reached for her phone and called the hospital's radiologist, Dr. Trent. He was an old friend, sharp, skeptical, and not easily spooked. "Hey, Karen, you working late? I've got a scan I need you to look at, urgent. It's unusual." "How unusual?" "Enough that I'm calling you before I send it into the system." There was a pause. "All right, text it to me." Karen snapped a photo of the printed scan and sent it. For a few minutes, silence. Then her phone rang again. "Karen, what is this? A 16-year-old girl says she's 8 weeks in, but the structure... That's not normal fetal development. The spine's too segmented and that skull's elongated. It's not a deformity, it looks evolutionary, like a different species entirely." Karen felt her chest tighten. "Could it be a glitch in the machine?" Trent snorted. "Come on. That's not a glitch. That thing is looking at you." She froze. "You see it too?" He lowered his voice. "Karen, you need to send this to the CDC. Or someone. This isn't just a medical anomaly." Karen's mind raced. The girl's father, he's in custody. She claims he assaulted her, but something's wrong with this baby, very wrong. Is there a chance she was exposed to something? Chemicals? Radiation? I don't know, but Harold, he was too calm, like he knew something like this would happen. Karen's hands trembled as she hung up. Her instincts had saved Emily from something horrifying, but now Karen wasn't sure what exactly she had saved her from. She stepped back into Emily's room. The girl was lying still, her eyes open, blank. Karen sat on the edge of the bed. "Emily, I need to ask you something strange, okay?" Emily blinked. "Has your father ever talked to you about experiments? Or science stuff? Anything that seemed strange?" The girl didn't answer for a while, then quietly she said, "He made me drink something." Karen's breath caught. "What was it?" "I don't know. He said it would keep me from getting sick, but it tasted like metal, like coins." "Do you still have any of it?" Emily shook her head. Karen stood, fighting the urge to panic. Whatever Harold had done, whatever he had fed this girl, it had changed something fundamental, not just in her body, but in the life growing inside her. And that life was not entirely human. Karen barely slept that night. She couldn't get the ultrasound image out of her mind. She'd seen hundreds over the years, twins, malformed embryos, stillbirths, but nothing like this. This wasn't medical. It felt engineered, deliberate, like something had been placed inside Emily, not conceived. The next morning, the clinic was quieter than usual. News of Harold Jensen's arrest hadn't leaked yet, but everyone could feel the tension. Karen kept her head down, avoiding conversation, and went straight to Emily's room. Emily was awake, staring blankly out the window. A tray of untouched breakfast sat beside her bed. Karen knocked gently. "Hey, how are you feeling?" Emily shrugged. "Tired." Karen sat beside her. "You don't have to talk, but I wanted to ask something important." Emily turned to her slowly. "Your dad, was he involved in anything strange, work, science? Groups? Anything you didn't understand?" Emily hesitated. "He worked from home, said he was in biodata research or something. He never let me see his office." Karen raised an eyebrow. "Biodata?" "Yeah," said he was studying how people's bodies change under pressure. Stress, exposure to chemicals, environments. Karen's pulse picked up. "Did he have anyone coming to the house?" "Anyone you didn't know?" Emily nodded slowly. "Sometimes they wore suits, not like business suits, hazmat suits. They'd go into the basement and stay there for hours. He'd say they were cleaning mold." Karen exhaled sharply. "Mold. Sure. Emily, I need to ask you something very serious now, and I want you to be honest, okay?" Emily looked at her warily. "Did he ever say this baby wasn't human?" Silence. Then Emily's lip quivered. He said I was special, that my body could carry it, that most people couldn't. He called it a vessel compatibility match. Said I'd help bring something new into the world. Karen's blood ran cold. This wasn't a medical case. It was a biological experiment. And Emily wasn't just a victim of abuse. She was a test subject in something much darker. Karen stood and excused herself, promising she'd be right back. She went straight to her office and locked the door, pulling up the ultrasound again. She enhanced the image. There it was, the long skull, the segmented spine, the way it twitched. No fetus should move like that this early on. The reflexes weren't developed. And yet it responded to the scan, like it knew it was being watched. Karen uploaded the image to a secure medical database and flagged it with a red-level alert. The CDC request she sent included everything: patient background, symptoms, Harold's odd behavior, and most importantly, the ultrasound image. Then she called Dr. Trent again. "They're coming," she said. "I sent everything." "Karen, that thing isn't just some freak mutation," Trent replied, his voice tight. "It's deliberate. The DNA profile, if it matches what I suspect, this girl's carrying something synthetic." Synthetic, not natural, altered, like it's been edited. Maybe CRISPR, maybe something even more advanced, way beyond public tech, maybe military, maybe black ops. Whatever it is, it's not supposed to exist. Karen's head throbbed. "This girl, she's just a kid." "She won't be for long," he said quietly. "Whatever's growing inside her is accelerating, and if I'm right, if this thing reaches full term, we may not be able to contain it." Karen ended the call and sat in silence. Outside, birds chirped like it was just another day, but something dark was coming, and it was growing inside a scared teenage girl down the hall. Karen stood up and grabbed her keys. She needed to go to Harold's house. Before the authorities got there, before anything could be cleaned up. She needed to see what he was working on. She needed to find that basement. Because Harold Jensen hadn't just broken the law, he had broken nature itself. Karen didn't tell anyone where she was going. She signed herself out of the clinic. For personal matters, grabbed a copy of the patient report and drove straight to the address on Emily's file. A modest two-story house on the outskirts of town, tucked between thick, overgrown hedges. It looked quiet, normal. The kind of house where you'd expect backyard barbecues and sprinkler hoses on summer days. But now, it felt dead. Not abandoned, just stripped of life, as if whatever energy once lived inside had been sucked dry. She parked a few houses down and walked up cautiously. Police tape stretched across the front door, but no officers stood guard. Harold hadn't been charged with anything beyond the abuse yet. They hadn't seen the ultrasound. They didn't know the real crime. Karen ducked under the tape, heart pounding. The air was still, like the house itself was holding its breath. Inside, it was unnervingly clean. Everything in its place. Furniture, polished, pictures neatly hung, except none of the frames held any photos, just generic images, stock family photos with unfamiliar faces. It was like Harold had gone out of his way to erase any evidence of Emily's life here. She made her way down the hall. Then she found it. A heavy door with an electronic keypad lock at the base of the stairs. Basement access. She crouched and examined the panel. The numbers were worn on a few digits, 1, 3, 7, 9. She tried a few. Combinations. Nothing. Then she remembered something Emily said. "He always made me recite Bible verses before bed." Karen took a chance and typed in 1379, the numbers in sequence. The lock clicked. The heavy door creaked open, releasing a musty, metallic smell. Not mold, sterile metal, like a hospital or lab. She descended the stairs slowly, phone flashlight cutting through the darkness. At the bottom was something she hadn't expected. A lab. Not makeshift, not amateur. This was professional. Cold metal counters, storage units, vats, computers, screens, incubators humming quietly. In one corner stood a large metal tank labeled Test Batch Alpha, Series 3. A flickering screen on its side displayed internal temperature, amniotic levels, and biological data. Karen approached a desk where a stack of files sat open. She picked up the first one. Subject, E3, host age. 16 compatibility high. Fetal growth rate, Accelerated X1, 7 projected birth, 23 weeks. She swallowed hard. The documents referred to the fetus as organism E3. Nowhere was the word baby or child mentioned. It wasn't human to them. It was a project, a weapon, maybe a creation. She opened another file marked Gene Profile Crossmatch. DNA graphs filled the page, showing sequences Karen didn't recognize. Some looked spliced, other sections showed signs of synthetic markers. But the source DNA? At the bottom of the page, non-human sample origin unknown. Recovered from impact site number 2, Nevada. Her blood turned to ice. Harold had used alien DNA, or something close enough, and he hadn't just studied it, he'd implanted it into his own daughter, not for love, not for survival, but for research, for control. Suddenly, a sharp sound cracked behind her. Karen froze, spinning toward the stairs. Footsteps. She flicked off her light and ducked behind a steel chamber, holding her breath. A silhouette appeared at the top of the stairs. Then a voice, male, cold, unfamiliar. I told him not to do a solo implant. The girl was unstable. Another voice responded. Too late now, she's pregnant. E3 is viable. We extract the embryo and terminate the vessel. Terminate the vessel? They weren't just monitoring. They were ready to kill Emily to retrieve what was inside her. Karen didn't wait. She pulled out her phone and started recording everything. Photos, video, voice memo. Then she slowly backed toward the rear corner of the lab, where a second stairwell led up toward what looked like a storm hatch. She crept up, praying the hatch wasn't locked. It gave way with a rusty creak. Karen slipped out just as the men entered the main part of the lab. She ran through the overgrown backyard, heart hammering in her chest. Back in her car, she called the clinic immediately. Get security on Emily, lock her room, no visitors, and alert the police, tell them she's a target. Dr. Moffat, what's going on? Karen didn't answer, because in her mind all she could see was the ultrasound, the inhuman twitch, the hollow eyes, and what terrified her most. It wasn't that something had been implanted in Emily. It was that the thing growing inside her was aware. Karen sped through traffic like her car was on fire. The moment she ended the call, her brain couldn't stop screaming at her to move faster. Emily wasn't just a pregnant teen anymore. She was a ticking time bomb with a target on her back, and whatever secret group Harold had been working with clearly had no intention of letting her live once they got what they wanted. When Karen pulled up at the clinic, 2 security guards were already at the front doors. Good, but that didn't mean they were safe. She rushed inside and headed straight for Emily's room. A nurse intercepted her in the hallway. Dr. Moffat, someone already tried to get in here. Karen froze. Who? A man in scrubs said he was with emergency trauma response. I told him we had no call placed. He didn't argue, just left without saying another word. Check the security cameras, Karen said sharply. Pull his face and forward it to local law enforcement, now. She pushed open the door to Emily's room. The girl sat curled up in bed, visibly shaken. They tried to take me, she whispered. Karen crossed the room and took her hand. You're safe now, I promise. I heard them. One of them said, we need the sample intact. Terminate the rest if needed. Karen clenched her jaw. I'm not letting anyone touch you. She sat down beside Emily and took a deep breath. I went to your house. Emily's eyes widened. There's a lab underneath it. Professional, real equipment, files, tanks. Your father wasn't just doing this alone. He was part of something much bigger, something organized. Emily said nothing, but her eyes filled with tears again. I found files marked Organism E3. That's what they're calling your baby, not a name, not a gender, just a label. Like you were just a container for them. I heard him say once, Emily whispered, that I wasn't meant to survive the birth. Karen blinked. What? He said my body wouldn't last. That it would rupture. Like I wasn't made to carry it all the way. A wave of sickness rolled through Karen's gut. They'd known it was fatal. They never cared. Karen stood and began pacing. Her brain raced through options. Protection, extraction, federal involvement. Then she remembered the ultrasound again, the way the fetus moved. Not reflexively, but intentionally, like it was watching. That thought chilled her more than anything. Emily, do you ever feel like the thing inside you is aware of you? Emily didn't speak right away. Then she nodded, just barely. Sometimes at night I get dreams, but not mine. It's like it shows me things, not images, feelings, cold, emptiness, space, like I'm floating in the dark. Karen's mouth went dry. Does it speak to you? Emily looked up. Not with words, but it wants out. Karen didn't answer, because deep down she wasn't sure if Emily's baby wanted to be born or if it wanted to escape. Suddenly her phone buzzed. It was Dr. Trent. Karen, he said, voice low and urgent, I just ran a trace on the gene profile you sent. We were wrong about where it came from. Karen frowned. What do you mean? That sample, it's not extraterrestrial. What? Then what is it? It's interdimensional. The data markers don't match anything on Earth, or even from our universe. This thing didn't come from another planet. It came from another plane of existence. Karen staggered backward like she'd been struck. Then what is it doing in her? Trent hesitated. If I had to guess, it's using her as a gate, a way through. A gate to what? To here, Trent said simply. To our world. Karen stared at Emily, and at once she knew this wasn't just about saving a girl anymore. This was about stopping something from being born that should never exist in this world at all. Karen locked the clinic doors. She told the staff there was a biological threat and that no one was allowed in or out without her clearance. Most of them had never seen her like this. Sharp, commanding, voice low with authority that didn't ask for questions. They obeyed. Emily was moved to a secured isolation room, guarded by 2 private security agents hired through a personal contact at the hospital board. Karen didn't trust the cops anymore, not after someone already got in, once dressed like staff. Someone on the inside was working with Harold's people. She had exactly one goal left now: keep Emily alive long enough to stop whatever was coming. But Emily was fading. Her skin was pale, her body cold to the touch, and she'd started speaking in her sleep, not in English. Karen had recordings. She'd sent them to Trent, who had forwarded them to a linguist at Stanford. The response had come back late that evening. These phrases aren't in any known human language, but the structure follows patterns of communication. It's not gibberish, it's a language, possibly a constructed one, or one that predates known history. That same night, Karen walked into Emily's room after midnight and saw the girl sitting up, her eyes wide and black, completely black. No iris, no white. Just 2 endless orbs staring at the wall. Karen froze in the doorway. Emily? The bye. Girl didn't answer. Her lips moved silently. Karen stepped closer. Can you hear me? Then Emily turned slowly, those black eyes locking on hers. He is almost here. Karen took a shaky step back. Who's coming? Emily's mouth moved, but the voice that came out wasn't hers. It was deep, layered, as if it came from beneath the floor of existence itself. The vessel opens, the gate stretches, the sleeper dreams in blood. Karen ran out and called Trent immediately. She's not just carrying this thing, she's being controlled by it. He was silent for a long time. Then he said something she would never forget. Karen, the birth isn't just about making something new, it's a summoning. That fetus, it's not the final product, it's the key. Karen stared through the glass at the girl who was no longer just Emily. Suddenly alarms blared through the clinic. Emergency lockdown activated. She rushed to the main console. Motion breach detected, Sector 3. She ran, 2 guards behind her. Down the hallway, a side door stood open, smashed in, blood on the floor. 2 nurses, unconscious or dead, slumped against the wall. And then she saw them. 3 men in dark suits, one holding a strange silver device shaped like a claw, another holding a long syringe filled with black liquid. They were heading straight for Emily's room. Karen didn't think. She screamed, "Stop them!" Gunfire erupted. One of the guards opened fire, hitting one man in the chest. He fell. The others moved with inhuman speed, dodging bullets and sprinting down the hall. Karen ran ahead, throwing herself in front of Emily's door just as the man with the syringe lunged. She kicked the syringe from his hand. It skittered across the floor. The guard fired again, this time taking him down. The last one fled. Karen turned around panting and burst into the room. Emily was sitting up again, smiling. "They can't stop it now," she said. Karen stepped forward. "Emily, you're stronger than it. You're still in there. Fight it." The girl tilted her head. "You're too late. The womb has broken. The sleeper is awake." And then the lights exploded. Power cut out, and a low, vibrating hum began to fill the air. Not a sound, a feeling deep in the bones, something ancient, something arriving. Karen grabbed Emily's wrist, felt the skin split beneath her fingers as something pushed from the inside. It wasn't time yet. It shouldn't be happening. But it was. The birth had begun. And whatever was coming into this world was not of this world at all. Darkness consumed the clinic, but it wasn't just a power outage. It felt alive, like the shadows themselves had begun to pulse. Karen's ears rang with that vibrating hum, the same deep, bone-rattling frequency that had filled Emily's room. It wasn't mechanical. It was cosmic, a sound born somewhere far beyond the reach of human comprehension. Emily lay on the bed, her body convulsing, mouth stretched in a silent scream. Her skin glowed faintly with a bluish hue, her veins lit from the inside like thin, winding rivers of light. Her stomach had bloated grotesquely in minutes, pulsing like it was breathing. Karen tried to hold her down, but Emily's body thrashed with unnatural strength. She screamed, "Emily, stay with me, don't let it take you." But the voice that came out of Emily wasn't hers anymore. "She is gone. Only the gate remains." Karen backed away, tears in her eyes, horrified. This wasn't childbirth, this was possession. Suddenly the air cracked. Fertier, a literal rip, formed in the space above Emily's body. A vertical seam opened in mid-air like a wound in the fabric of reality. Through it, darkness bled in, swirling, thick, sentient, whispering in dead languages. It wasn't just some interdimensional creature arriving. It was a conscious force, and Emily's body had been its invitation. From the rip, a long skeletal hand reached out. Then another. Karen did the only thing she could think of. She ran to the crash cart and yanked the defibrillator pads free, cranking them to maximum voltage. If Emily was gone, if she was truly overtaken, then maybe stopping her heart would stop it too. "God forgive me," she whispered. She pressed the pads against Emily's chest and hit the button. Jolt. Emily's body arched and slammed back into the bed. The hum stuttered. The rip in the air flickered. Karen hit her again. Jolt! This time the rip screamed, but not Emily, but the thing beyond the tear. A scream that didn't pass through ears, but through soul. The hands began retracting. The tear began to close, spasming violently. One more time, jolt! Emily gasped and her eyes turned back, normal, brown, filled with tears. Karen dropped the paddles and rushed forward. "It's okay, I've got you, stay with me." But Emily groaned. "It's still inside. I can't stop it." Karen realized what she had to do. She turned to the stunned guard who had entered during the chaos. "I need a surgical kit now. We're taking it out. Mahir, you'll kill her. She'll die if we don't, and if that thing's born, we all will." They prepped in less than 2 minutes. Karen had no experience in C-sections, but she had no choice. The black veins across Emily's stomach had begun moving, writhing under her skin like worms. She cut quickly, ignoring the shaking in her hands. The womb was pulsing. Inside, the thing wasn't shaped like a baby. It was hunched, skeletal. Its skin pale gray with patches of black bone. Its eyes opened the moment light hit it, 2 pits of bottomless void. Karen didn't let it stare. She reached in, hands shaking, and pulled it free. The moment the cord snapped, the hum stopped, the rip closed, silence fell. The creature shrieked, sharp, shrill, alien. Karen didn't hesitate. She grabbed a needle from the tray full of potassium chloride meant for emergencies and drove it into the thing's chest. It spasmed, screamed, and then it went still. The light in the room flickered back on. Reality returned. The creature's body began to melt into ash, evaporating like dust in the wind. Emily's breathing slowed. She looked at Karen, weak but alive. "You stopped it?" Karen nodded, eyes full of tears. Yeah, it's over. But deep down she wasn't so sure. 2 days later, the CDC arrived. The remains had vanished. All the lab files at Harold's house were wiped. The men who had broken in were never identified. The project was scrubbed from existence like it had never happened. Emily was taken into protective custody. Karen never saw her again. But some nights when the world is too quiet, she hears that low humming sound in her dreams, and she knows that gate was just the first, and something else is still waiting to come through.